This is Pops, and I've been rewatching the Star Trek original series. This week is What Are Little Girls Made Of? Fair amount of things to talk about. In fact, let me just give you a sneak preview of one thing that caught my eye. Uh,
Oh my.
what's going on here? All right, let's talk about it. All right, Star Trek, What Are Little Girls Made Of? An episode that kind of centers around some elements I thought of Forbidden Planet, right? It's Enterprise is going to a planet, it's an ice planet. No one should have survived there, but we have a scientist named Corby that's there. Nurse Chapel's been brought back and she's like a fiance. She's convinced he's still alive. She's along for the mission. They get there, they get a voice recording. Yes, he's there. They beam down and we end up finding out they're physically an android factory. Yeah, there we go. Twists and turns along the way, and you start to have at least some conversation, or at least an effort to instigate some conversation about what does it mean to be human, and can androids replace humans or not. All right, let's go into a few scenes. Well, as always, it's good to start with Kirk. Episodes about Kirk. He's showcased. In fact, we don't get Bones, we don't get Scotty, we don't get Sulu, we barely have Uhura. It's pretty much just Kirk and a lot of Kirks. But look at how good he looks, man. Shatner, I mean, they shave him down for a nude sequence. Basically, they put him on the merry-go-round scene where he has a duplicate, an android duplicate. So yeah, a lot of Kirk in this. Um, he doesn't seem to be as over. Well, I shouldn't say that. He doesn't appear to be overacting with dialogue, but some of the action sequences are a little bit over the top. Then there's Spock. Spock doesn't have a lot to do in this episode. There's two moments I think that were really, 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 really good. Um, First was there's a quick moment where Nurse Chapel there and Kirk and them are discussing whether or not Corby has survived or not, or could have survived. And Spock, even though you can tell by his mannerisms, he knows the odds are very unlikely that this scientist is alive. But he kind of holds back. He doesn't really kind of go into it. And it's an illogical presumption to assume he's alive. It's like that Vulcan reaction that I kind of expected was not there. So I thought that was kind of telling. And then at the end of the episode, you have this comment that's a callback to Kirk. So Kirk had done this programming with this android thing, basically calling Spock a half breed. And it was kind of like a tell for Spock to be kind of clued in when there was going to be an android replacement for him. And at the end, he talked about how that was kind of unnerving. And there was a great back and forth there. I thought that was excellent. I really liked that.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. It is an unsophisticated expression.
I'll remember that, Mr. Spock, the next time I find myself in a similar situation.
All right, in this episode, we did appropriately get our red shirted crewman who gets dispatched. We have this poor fellow who goes down. Next thing I know, he's over the side on a little cliff. So, yeah, shenanigans are afoot in this episode, and that was kind of good. And of course, the highlight for me was getting to see this guy, man, Ted Cassidy, Lurch. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. Now, I don't know. I don't think I didn't look anything up. So I don't think he's been in the other episodes. Maybe he's done some other work that I'm not aware of. It was great to see him. He is a very big, large, looming character with very distinct facial features. It was very clear to see and identify him as Lurch. And here he plays Ruck, I think is how you would say his name, Ruck or Rook. And he turns out to be basically the giant android. Here's one of our doctors before we finally get to the reunion, which is like a kiss between this guy and Kirk's like, yeah, man, I feel you, man. Get your thing on. I'm like, wow, okay, Kirk. Kind of like it is. So that's pretty much how we get our introduction. That kind of moves along pretty fast. And then you have sort of like this back and forth. And a lot of time is sort of wasted in this episode showing that he can imitate other voices. He can do a lot of those kinds of things. And the android is, they kind of want it both ways. They want the android is very, very sophisticated, yet the android can be programmed to listen to Nurse Chapel and not do certain things. So I don't know. I felt like they didn't quite know exactly how extreme they wanted to go with sort of like Asimov principles or deal with those type of concepts. And kind of like, again, like I said, call back a little bit here to like Forbidden Planet.
I was left here by the old ones.
Again, fight scene. Some of the fight scene stuff was actually just quite silly. I actually just kind of thought this is just almost it was and then just because of the way the set is built and you have the seam in the wall, instead of it being like a natural cave or anything like that, they made it too small. So the shadows on the wall and the way the line of the thing, the show has not um, took me out of the moment a lot with the limitations with finances and sets and things like that. But this was a sequence that did. This episode did that a lot, actually.
Beam the security party down immediately. Kirk out.
Okay, we can't say enough about this character because, good lord, she barely has anything on. I'm actually kind of shocked that this got through censors. I'm assuming this is a massive fan favorite. This poor actress. I don't know what else she's been in. I don't recognize her. I was just like, total Gene Roddenberry stuff for the fanboys. I don't know if this was on by design or not. And I also noticed in this show, I don't know what they wear underneath their tunics, but even Nurse Chapel, man, it's she's barely got some drawers going on there, man. It's crazy. So, yeah, did not really ever pick up on that in my viewing or knowledge of Trek before, and that was a lot of this in this episode. But see, like, look at how she has boots on, and she has like um some netting, but I don't think she has much on underneath that tunic. So, well, then we get to Kirk, naked Kirk. He's been shaved down. We're gonna make an android out of him, and basically the idea of the android making machine is basically this crazy merry-go-round machine. There we go, and then we just kind of gradually make Kirk into an android, and by the end, we end up with not knowing which one is which at times. They have a scene here that they try to fool Chapel. They bring in the other one, and this is the real Kirk on the right. So that kind of moves us along pretty well. There's some back and forth, there's some banter, there's some interesting things going on about Android, what they're actually capable of or not. And then, of course, during the escape sequence is when we get to the well, we're going to call it the stalactite incident. Like, what are we doing here? Because we have this shot, and then he closes in, and then he's holding this. It's clearly not the same stalagmite. There you go. I mean, I don't know who made the swaparoo. Do you? Is it me, or do we feel like there's cast members who are having a good laugh at producers' expenses? I don't know. I really couldn't believe this is what I saw. So anyway, I'm sure there's a backstory. Nerporio will probably have first dibs on telling me what the backstory is. I mean, it was quite comical. Anyway, I don't really understand at all why he rescues Kirk. He doesn't just kick him over the edge. This is the android. The android goes into back up to the Enterprise. I don't understand why he gets rescued. This was a good shot. I want to go back to this shot for a minute. I really like this shot. Not a massive fan of that way that the Enterprise always looks, but that was a great shot. Okay, so when it's revealed that Corby is actually an android and you have this back and forth, basically it's commentary on the singularity. You know, is he really Corby or not? Because he has all these memories, he has these very distinct moments that he can relate to with Nurse Chapel. And I think this was really ahead of its time for the 1960s. I really like that element of it. But at the same time, and I like the fact that they tried some nice things with the special effects, with the way they tried to make the android stuff sort of like emerge out of their bodies. It wasn't just like, oh, we have a little piece of foil stuck underneath the costuming or whatever. They tried some different things. I think that actually worked reasonably well. I'm glad I got to this because it almost looks like he has a sixth finger with the way they did the makeup and stuff, where the one's kind of folding back. But yeah. All right. Well, things go sideways for Corby and the androids. I mean, the girl, she gets mixed up. She ends up eliminating the android, kind of a convenient plot element there. So overall, I thought it was them dabbling with a very complicated uh, topic and complicated conversation about science fiction and androids, singularities, things like that. And for its time, way ahead of its time to do those kinds of things. But at the same time, it feels very convoluted. It didn't really have anything that got me really gelled into it. I just didn't. This isn't an episode that I really kind of have anything really super positive to say, really, other than that. And of course, there were some comical elements with obviously the naked merry-go-round and the phallic symbol stalactite and the fact that two of the women are barely wearing clothes. It's like, okay, it is what it is. So, anyways, that's my thoughts on it. I don't know where this ranks for you. I thought this was entertainment. I get it. I get why Trek folks like this. There's so many little things there that are enjoyable, whatever. It is not the worst way to spend 45 minutes to an hour of your life. So I get all of that. I don't totally have a great affinity for this episode compared to some of the other ones, right? That's kind of my take on it. So I'd love to hear from you guys, though. I know Nerporio make some comments. Thanks again for all your help, buddy. Watching these in production order. Some of you guys left some really, really great comments, especially here recently. I thank you for that. I appreciate you watching. I am Pops.